Hello. So this one's a story from a while ago, probably before 2000 even, 1998, 99. I used to be in college, and that was the time when I used to roam around by myself quite a bit. In fact, so much so that many of my college friends did not even know where I lived because the only apt question to me after college used to be, "Where are you going to go today?" And I had a bunch of uncles and aunts around the city um, in which I lived. So I would literally go off in any direction, and I would oftentimes stay over at a friend's place or um, the place of someone we knew. Now, this story is about a day I was taking a walk at a beautiful place called Marine Drive in the city of Mumbai. And I used to love going there and meeting people. Um, I would often just sit there by myself, enjoying the beauty of the sea, the waves, and the sun shining on the water. Um, and I would oftentimes observe people sitting there, sometimes silently, sometimes chatting with one another. And there was this one day where I saw a British gentleman talking to a local and asking a question. The question was, do you know where I can find peppers, red chili peppers? And the local wasn't very fluent in English, so he started directing this gentleman to a library and or a bookstore rather. And this gentleman was very frustrated because apparently he'd been at it for a while. And he was like, "No, I do not want books. I want red chili peppers, not papers, peppers." And I was watching them smiling away. I waited for that conversation to kind of come to a close, and as the local uh, walked away, I walked up to this gentleman and said, "Sir, I know that I can help you with what you need." And he looked at me. I was pretty young there back then, so he looked at me and said, "I don't know if you understand what I need. I want red chili peppers. I do not want any sort of papers." And I was like, "Yes, I do know what you're looking for, and I can get you to a place where you'll find them." And he stood there for a second. Wasn't very convinced, it seemed. But then he agreed. He said, "Okay, let's go. Where do you want to, which way do you want to go?" And I started leading him in the direction of a um, departmental store that I knew of in that area. It was one of those places where you don't have a lot of grocery stores or places to shop for these kind of things from. So as we were walking, he was like, "So, what do you do?" And I told him about what I did with my schooling and my college. And he was such a nice gentleman. He started talking to me about things that he did. And I, of course, asked him what he did and why he was in our country, whether he was visiting, whether he was a tourist. And he told me that he was there on business. So his words were, "I travel because I love traveling. And the work I do makes me travel a lot more than the average person." And then he just took a pause and he said to me, "You know what, son? If you do what you love, if your work is something that you love, your entire life becomes a vacation." And while I was still very young, those words suddenly um, seemed to, gain a lot of weightage and they made a lot of sense. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You do what you love, and your entire life becomes a vacation. Of course, back then, although the words made a lot of sense, I couldn't really do much about them. So I just heard him out, and he told me a bunch of stories about how he traveled to different countries and met so many different people from various different backgrounds. He seemed to be enjoying his life, and he must have been in his 50s back then when I met him. And he didn't seem the least bit tired or exhausted from life the way a lot of us, end up being on some days. So I was quite intrigued by how this gentleman was living his life. Anyway, we did walk down to this store. It's called the Asiatic store in Churchgate, Mumbai, and we. Well, I asked the store manager for um, the peppers in a local language, and for a second, he started showing me some variants of those peppers, and I could see the look of um, disappointment on Bryan's face. Bryan was the name of the gentleman I'm talking about, and he immediately started thinking about heading back out, and I was like, hold on. I know what you want, and we will find it here. So I actually walked to um, the upper story of that store, and I looked around. And lucky enough, I found a big packet of those peppers. And by the way, before this, I had asked him as to how much, like what quantity he wanted to buy those in. And he was like, I'd take about 5 kgs. I want to take them for a friend. He loves the fun. Like 5 kgs? Are you sure? Do you know how light these things are? And he was like, no, 5 kgs should do. I have plenty of room in my cabin baggage, so I should be okay with my check-in baggage. So when he saw these packets, each one of those was, I think, about 500 grams, and they were huge because these are very light since they're dried in the sun and they're really light. So he looked at them and he was like, you know what? I'm probably going to take just 2 of those. So about 1 kilogram should do just fine. So we picked up those peppers and we walked out. And then we actually were passing by a local music stall, I should call it. I mean, a lot of these were places that sold pirated music, CDs and cassettes ripped off and sold for much lesser than the original price. Anyway, so they were playing some local music, and he was like, can you get me one of those? Can you? I love that music. I was like, okay, I can surely get you one of those, but are you sure you're going to listen to this? Because it's not in a language that you understand, and it's very much the devotional stuff that we have being played around here. So it's like, yeah, I like it. So I picked up a couple of those for him, and yeah, he was like, "Can I get you some music CDs from your?" And well, I thanked him. I did not pick up any, but I wish we were in the age of the ease of communication that we have these days. That I could have got his number or his email even, but I did not. And somehow, the fact that I don't have any of his contact information makes this entire episode, I think, a little more special because it's just right here in my memory. And to this day, it's been over 2 decades now. And to this day, it's all so fresh in my mind that I literally cannot forget anything that happened on that day. Also, I take that experience and the learning about, how if you're doing something you love, your entire life becomes a vacation. Um, yeah, and I think it stays um, with me, and it's something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. So that is it. The story about the red chili peppers. Thank you for listening, folks. Have a good one.